I'm CWO4 Victor Pinion, retired, telling some stories of my naval career. Although I retired many years ago, over 30 years ago, but I remember a lot of the stuff, and I've written a couple of books concerning my naval career, and a lot of these stories are in those books. Well, this one was while I was serving aboard the aircraft carrier USS John F. Kennedy, CV-67, and we were on a deployment to the Mediterranean Sea. We had already went through the southern parts of the Atlantic Ocean, and now we were in the Med. And the Arabs had exploded a truck bomb and killed a bunch of U.S. Marines, and we were dispatched there in the northern Indian Ocean, or not Indian Ocean, but Mediterranean Sea, to do whatever we were doing. It was a combat situation. And we had been at sea, working our tails off, keeping airplanes in the air 24/7. And the enemy had been looking for us with airplanes loaded with ordnance to try to bomb us or crash into us, and boats out there loaded with explosives looking to us to try to crash into us. So we've been kept moving and keeping airplanes in the air 24/7 for a couple of months. And now we're going to pull into port in Naples, Italy. I've already told you a story about the defectively manufactured capacity selector valve for the catapults, and many things that we found wrong with it that had previously been unknown. Things had been done wrong to this critical valve. Well, I had talked with the ship installations officer on the telephone about that, the radio telephone, and about some shortages of parts that my air boss would not allow me to send a casualty report message to get those parts. So now I have a lot of maintenance that needs to be done, and some of it's stuff you just don't want to do it while you're at sea in alert status just all the time. Well, we're going to pull into Naples, Italy, and I had asked the SI officer at Comnav Land before we left the States about maintenance support capability of civilians to come aboard the ship and do certain maintenance jobs. He told me that there's nothing available there. Well, I had some other problems aboard the ship since we deployed, and one of them was oil-soaked insulation and lagging in the launch valve rooms of the catapults, which were a fire hazard. And I'd made an attempt to get that replaced, and the engineering department was uncooperative, big time. But now we're pulling into Naples. We did, and we'd done a lot of work after we left the line. We'd done a lot of work on machinery on the way to Naples. We still had a lot to do. But now I've been up for a long time working, and I'm exhausted, so I hit my rack. And just as I dozed off, just as we anchored, my phone rang. It's not an uncommon occurrence. And it's the quarterdeck. I have a phone call on the quarterdeck. Get down there right away and take it. Well, I threw some clothes on around down there, and it was the local CAFSU rep in Naples. He said that the ship installations officer wanted to talk to me on the phone from the CAFSU office there in Naples. So I caught the next boat in, and we went over to his office and called the ship installations officer, and we had an informative talk. And I told him about the parts that the air boss wouldn't let me casual up to get, and he said, well, I can get those for you. So he did, and started them my way. We had a number of other discussions too. But we got quite a bit of work done there in Naples. Well, I got back to the ship, and the chief engineer wanted to talk to me. He had a civilian from a repair activity, a civilian repair activity that had a lieutenant commander, engineering duty officer as its officer in charge. They did maintenance work aboard ships, and they had not received any requests from the Kennedy for any maintenance work. So the chief engineer told me, says, I told him about your oil-soaked launch valve room lagging in installation, and he's eager to do that job. I said, great. So I talked with him. We scheduled her to do that job. They brought a bunch of Italians aboard, civilians. They replaced all of that also lagging installation and did a wonderful job of it. Now, here's the ship installation officer either was unaware that that team existed there, or they just didn't want to be cooperative in using their services. It didn't cost anything from my budget or from ComNav budget. I don't know who funded that activity, but it cost nothing from my budgets. So why on earth didn't Airland want to use that service? But we did, and we got good service from them. Well, we traded another civilian outfit that did work on ships. Only this was not in the official line. They would come aboard the ship and dump your garbage and do cleaning work and stuff like that. Just jobs that needed done. But if you trade them some old worn out parts that you would normally have thrown over the side while you were at sea, they loved the old worn out catapult and arresting gear cables. So we would save them to trade to these people to do things for us. One of the things that they did was they would cast bronze parts, like that bell there. Can y'all see that bell? I'll show it to you. This plaque that was awarded to me by the Kennedy when I left it, the bell and these cross anchors and wings were made by that company in exchange for those old worn out cables that we would normally have thrown over the side at sea and just disposed of them. So we saved up those worn out cables and we traded them to him, and we give him a bunch of old worn out piston guides that were made of bronze, big heavy things, for him to make us a bunch of bronze parts that we would make plaques with, such as that bell and other things. And he did, and so we get a bunch of that stuff and we'd use it as a morale booster to give awards to the crew and stuff and to departing officers. Okay, I'm running out of time for this segment, so y'all carry on.